Hi, and welcome to another episode of Conquering Dreams. This is your host, CB Baker. Man, it has been a while since I have done a show, so I'm really looking forward to the information I got to bring y'all. Today, I will be going dolo. So, today was very interesting. The past couple months has been very interesting. So, a lot of things that's happened that I want to go into and expand on to what I have basically been telling my staff that work for me about hiring people and the process that you got to go through in order to get that done. But also like to give a big shout out to the people out there that's doing big things. Sean Archer, Rashad Harris, L. Harris, Kim Wimbish. It's a whole lot in the Hampton Roads area that are really doing a lot of things. That have been really moving and shaking out there in the Hampton Roads area and doing really big things and supporting other entrepreneurs and giving them opportunities in order to get the stuff that they do out there in the world and see how far they can actually, how big they can get everything going, So it's really an exciting time. The summer's over. Fall is here. Football season is here. Just had the first NFL game last night. My wife is a big time Patriots fan. She wasn't too happy about the result last night of them losing to the Chiefs, but that's a whole nother story. I may have to get her on and we'll talk about that because she is supposedly boycotting the NFL due to the Colin Kaepernick situation, but she tuned in a little bit unofficially to the game because I was the one watching the game. But moving on to what I want to talk to everybody about today in Conquer Dreams is, all right, so you have done what you said you was going to do. You was going to start a business or you're going to start a business. And a lot of times when people don't talk about what's not in the brochure, right? What's in the brochure is usually making your own hours. You're doing stuff you're passionate about. You're happy all the time. And let me tell y'all something, people. That's in the brochure. You're happy a lot of the times when you're doing things that you want to do. Okay? And key things that you want to do. Something that you're passionate about. It doesn't feel like work. But I will say this. There comes a time if you go into business and you're doing a service-oriented business where you employ people. The hardest thing to manage is people. All the different type personalities and everything that goes into a lot of things. It really is people. I mean, it's human nature that you got to deal with. You'll find yourself dealing with the person itself. What happened to them that morning before they showed to work. And also what happened to them in their childhood. So it's a lot of things that you really got to focus on in order to grow your company if you're doing something that requires employees. So one of the biggest things I like to tell people about is like you want to be very personal with your staff, especially when you're a small company. It's because it's very easy to do, and you may not have the money to be able to really pay them like you want to pay them because you're not. Let's be honest, you're not even really paying yourself, or you might not be getting that much money in the beginning. But let's say for the people out there that's the entrepreneurs that's been out there, and you've gotten to a certain level where you're starting to hire 4 or 5 people, right? Or you're up to 10 people. And then you're wondering why aren't these people doing what I tell them to do? It's because they're humans. That's where your leadership comes in at. You have to constantly be motivating. You have to constantly be communicating what vision you have for the company. Okay. And it's very important that you communicate that. And the rule of thumb is when you felt like you've communicated it too much, say it again. I'm going to repeat that. When you think you have said it too much, say it one more time. Because a lot of times people are not tuned in. So like we're talking to 10 people, right? That's in a staff meeting. let's say at any given moment, you're only really talking to two people. Let's say you're only reaching 20% of your audience at any given moment, and it fluctuates in and out. You got people that tune in, people that tune out, tune in, tune out, because you already know how people interact with other people, right? Just think about yourself. When you're talking with somebody, a lot of times you're waiting to respond versus actually listening to what they're trying to get across. That's why Stephen Covey, rest in peace, Stephen Covey, big time philosopher. He always talked about how you got to seek to understand before trying to be understood. And that really is just a eloquent way of saying you need to listen more than you talk. Okay. So, if you take that mindset into the conversation that you're going to have, or when you're presenting to people, then that's when you got to say, okay, so a lot of people sitting there, and when you give them some information, they got to sift through a lot of past experience before they actually hear what you got to say. Because when you say something to them, they automatically go in their brain and they think, have I heard this before? Who said it? And what context they heard it in, right? But then by the time they realize all that, you're still talking and they have missed the other part of it. So you have to understand that as a leader and a communicator, that you're going to have to pump some of this stuff in their head multiple times for them to get all of it. That's one reason why one thing I tell people, you don't want to go into a meeting or management meeting with a whole lot of changes and a whole lot of information, especially if it's not written down, that you can hand to people, because they will not get it. It takes a while for them to understand it. I literally just had a conversation with this young man that came up, and he was talking about the church that he was starting. And then we had a conversation about how often it takes to really get to understand certain passages in the Bible, right? And it was like, we talked about how if you read it something 4 times, you get it, you understand it maybe on the first time, or understand it on the 5th, 4th, and 5th time, or maybe the 50th time you finally get it. But the whole point is getting it. Now, if the people have that much issue with the Bible on something like that, right? What makes you believe people are going to understand what you are trying to say the very first time you say it? Now let that one sink in. If all the great leaders in the Bible and all the great leaders outside of the Bible in the world have had issues with people listening to them and following their instructions on what is the best thing to do, what makes you believe that your staff is going to do, or going to do what you say or tell them to do or instruct them to do or lead them to do what you just saying at one time? Okay. Now, a lot of the times when you hear stories of people that ran companies and they would say certain things, or the room would get quiet when Warren Buffett would say something, that was Warren Buffett. He had years of reputation behind him, years of success behind him. So he had credibility. He had experience with it. I'm not trying to say that just because you don't have any experience or any credibility that no one should listen to you. I'm not saying that at all. But when you don't have the credibility, experience, or the reputation out there yet, that means you're going to have to keep saying it over and over and over and over again until it sinks in. And then, I'm always that person that says, I cannot stand saying the words, "I told you so." I hate it, because it's like, I'm like, if people just listen to me, it'd be so much easier. But you have to take a step back and say, you know what? I'm not communicating it enough. It may not be that you're not communicating it right. It's that you're not doing enough of it. You're not telling your company's vision to the people, right? Even Jesus himself had 12 disciples. that went out and told what his vision was. You might not, when you start out, you may not have 12 people on your team. You might not even have 2 people that believe in what you're saying. And some of y'all entrepreneurs out there haven't even completely sold yourself on what you're saying. Now let that sink in. Do you believe in what you're trying to promote and what you're trying to sell yourself? Any salesman and all the sales trainers that you'll listen to, a lot of them go into the fact that if you're not willing to buy the product, how can you sell it? Right? If you're not willing to buy the product, how can you sell it? I know Zig Ziglar on one of his big tapes, he was talking about how he told the guy, hey, man, he was selling like cookware. He said, do you have a set of cookware at home? He's like, no, it's too expensive. He's like, how do you expect to sell it to somebody if you're not using it? He told Zig, he's like, man, it's too expensive. Like, well, you buying that cook set is you investing in yourself, because once you buy the cook set, learn how to use it, then you'll be able to go into the place and tell people how to do it. Now, you may say, CB, what does that have to do with me, trying to sell my service on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that? What I'm telling you is, did you use the cookware? Are you using it now? Does it work? Do you believe in it? If you're using it now, whatever you're trying to sell, and you're using it and you believe that and you know it worked, that means you believe in it. But don't come out here trying to sell something that you don't believe in. So like when you're trying to do a business and trying to hire people to get them to go and to do a service and do what you want and get everything that you want done inside your company, you have to sell that service to the employee first. Not to the person that's getting the service. Think about how many times have you rolled up to Hardee's and the lady is popping gum as she talks to you through the intercom, and she's got a slight attitude. Now, let me ask you this question: does that happen at Chick-fil-A? No. At least it hasn't happened to me. It happens to me all the time when I go to Hardee's. And I'm willing to bet outside of breakfast, you roll up to a Hardee's, the line is not that long. But the second Chick-fil-A open up, it's usually wrapped around the building. Think about it. One company sold the vision the correct way and has communicated it well. The other company has not. Now, that's not saying that Hardee's can't turn things around. But the proof's in the pudding. I'm just sitting there looking at it. All right. So the same thing goes for you as running your own company. Is that, okay, you're saying you're an entrepreneur, you're going to start a business. What am I going to do? I'm going to sell this service. Do you believe in the service? Is a service needed? And do you believe in it? Those are two things that you got to basically cover. Right. Because if you want to open up a club, or a bar, and it's because there's not one around here, right? Then you got to ask yourself, why isn't there one around here? Maybe the people here don't want one. But if you go talk to the 2 or 3 people that's in your little circle that go out at night and say, oh man, it'd be nice if they had one here. Okay, you build it, but it's only 4 or 5 people that show up because it's the 4 or 5 people that you talk to. And we all know how that goes. If it's usually your friend, the unfortunate thing is, a lot of times people don't support you. They may come once, but you need them to come regularly to keep the business afloat. And then when they do come, they want to hook up. And that's a whole nother discussion there that I would like to have one day on this podcast with a guest. So now to bring all this to a point is when you go to hire someone, you have to already know what your vision is in order to hire the right people. Now, I had a staff person that got frustrated because we hired some people that voluntarily resigned. But they resigned because they couldn't do the service the way that we wanted them to do the service. But my manager was upset because he was like, I put all this work into them and they left. It's like, CB, I understand what you're coming from. I understand what you're saying, your frustration. I said, yeah, but it's better that it happened 2-3 weeks in than 6, 7, 8 months down the road. Because when you're putting stuff into employees and feeding them knowledge, you're helping your own company. But if you're doing that and then they don't really care and they're just there for a paycheck and then they bounce on you, then you're 8 months down. Then you put the information in them. Okay? So hiring the right people is very, very important because it costs money when you don't make the right decision. Okay? Because if like say for instance, in a scenario where you have trained a person, they last 8 months and then they quit. If they quit because they hit the lottery or, they're moving out of state, their wife got pregnant, or their spouse got a job offer somewhere else out of state or in another city and they got to move, those things happen. Okay. They happen. Life happens. And what I normally tell the people at that moment is like, thank you for your service. I'm so happy to hear that you're moving on to bigger and better things. Is anything I can do that will help you have a softer landing to where you're going? Okay. I've done that. And that's the right thing to do. Now, then there's the flip side of that coin. That person that says, they walk in your office and say, I want a $2 an hour raise, and they've only been working 8 months, and they haven't even remotely shown any type of value to merit a $2 an hour increase. And you say, well, we need to evaluate it for about 6 more months or something. And then the next day they turn in the resignation. Now, it does throw you off a little bit, but then like what I have learned over the years of operating businesses is when stuff like that happens, I'm thankful, because what's dangerous is a person that said, when you say, let's look at this 6 months down the road, and they don't want to put in the work to get better, to bring more value to your company, and they just stay hanging on, and they got that resentment towards you. Then they got that cancerous virus type thing going, and they go spread to your other good employees, and they stay around for 6 to 8 more months, mad and pissed off, and with this undercurrent spreading to everybody else. And you're trying to get new initiatives popped off, started, and you're wondering why you're hitting all these roadblocks. It's because you got this person there that's not for the team. So you really have to take time out with your staff, even after you've hired them, to flesh things out like that. Empower people to be able to come to you and talk things through, find out what the issues are. And then therefore you could turn all your hires into good hires. But let's be real. The famous former CEO of GE, Jack Welch, said in his book, I think it was in Winning, that you're going to hire the wrong person more often than you're going to hire the right person. Don't beat yourself up over it. And I do believe his successor that he chose to run GE didn't even stay that long. I don't even think he made it 1.5 years at GE after he left. So he handpicked the CEO for GE after he left, and he didn't last 1.5 years. Jack Welch. So I'm just telling everybody, look, man, I know you got your business up off the ground. Everything's going good and you're frustrated at your employees. I know it's understandable. Now, Gary Vee will say no one cares, but other entrepreneurs understand your pain. We've been there. We've done that. And managers out there, a middle manager, you deal with it too. The only thing you really can do to hire the right person is just communicate And the best way to communicate is by listening. When you do the interview process, ask your question and shut up. It's simple. Have you ever watched an interview on TV where the person who's doing the interview does a Bill O'Reilly, asks a question, and then right when the person starts talking, they ask another question or they come up with a statement? It's like, let the person answer the question. You gotta do the same thing in business. Like literally, when you're in an interview process, you ask a question, shut up. After the person gets hired, you go around and you 2 or 3 months down the road, you ask, what can we do better? Ask the question, shut up, listen. Listen and look. How do they feel talking about it? How do they feel talking about different things that they make it get that we can do to make things better? Once you start listening to those things, that's when you'll start seeing the maturation of your company and then it going to the next level. This whole thing is about reaching the next level, right? You know, unless you're going to be that entrepreneur that's like a Tim Ferriss where everything is just you and then you're outsourcing a lot of things, you can be like that, or you can be the person who wants to start a multimedia company. When you have photographers, web designers, things like that, or you can take them in-house or you can outsource it. Either way it go, you're still going to have to communicate to somebody your vision. And how well you communicate your vision determines how well your company does. And if your company is in disarray or people are not listening and they just are not getting it, it's very easy to say, oh, they're just not getting it. They're stupid. They don't understand. No, you don't understand them. So when you're saying something to your staff and they're not getting it, you need to take a step back, take a step down, get off your podium and say, help me understand why y'all are not getting it. And then be quiet. To be honest with you, I've done that a couple times, more than a couple times actually in my career. And a lot of times I get back to cigar Indian look. They just look like this. They stare a hole in you, or the people look down on the floor. Now, what I do is the ones that look in the floor, you're telling me body language, right? You got something that you want to say, but you don't want to say it. And I'm like, I cannot operate without the truth. Oh, I should say their perception of the truth. Right? Because they have a perception of what's going on or what should be going on or how we could get better. How often you talk to people at happy hour and they would say, my boss is just so stupid. He just don't get it. If they would listen to me, ... If he just did what I told him to do, man, they crazy. They don't know what they're doing over there. How often do you hear that? Sometimes I'll just flat out ask, what did you say to the people? What did you do to help the situation? I mean, everybody's a leader in their own right. You don't have to have a title to be a leader. You don't have to be the CEO. You don't have to be a supervisor. Even though you see those Instagram memes of the person like, who elected you supervisor over me? You're not a supervisor. But if you're not possessing any type of leadership skills and you're just clocking in and clocking out, and if somebody's there, like they might be tired of doing the same thing and they got aspirations, they got ambition. Like, I don't want to be at this level my whole life. So I want to make sure I put my best foot forward and grow the company. And here goes somebody, man, see me, man. You want people to be company man. Hell yeah. I own the company. I take a bunch of people. As a business owner, I want everybody to be the company man. Toe the company line. Until they feel like I'm out of line, and then they can come tell me. They can knock on my door. CB, hey, can I holler at you for a second? Yeah, sure. What's up? Last holiday, you gave everybody a chance to work, and they worked. They even know they got double pay, but a lot of them won't really feel it enough. It's like, really? Why? I mean, I did pay them for it. Like, yeah, they kind of rather been home with their family. All right. Okay, so, all right. So I'll call a meeting or talk to a couple people and see, if they felt that way. So, because you got to get it, and you also got to confirm stuff that you hear too. It's all about communication. 9 times out of 10, when your company starts failing and you're not really getting the results that you want, it's due to communication. All those books up there behind me, which I've read, 60% of it is all based on communication. It seems very simple, but it's very hard to get done because, like what Jim Rohn said, what is easy to do is also easy to not do. Always remember that, by Jim Rohn. But this is your host, CB Baker, for Conquering Dreams. Thank you so much for tuning in and taking a listen to what I had to say. And be sure to check out my other podcast I do with Dr. Michael G. Daniels, which is Everyday Strong with Dr. Michael G. Daniels. I do that usually every Tuesday, unless there's a holiday that comes up that throws a little monkey wrench in things. But please check that out. That's on SoundCloud and on iTunes as well. Thank y'all so much. Till next time.